Hi there, this is Color for Digital Design. I'm Alvalyn Lundgren, and we're talking in Unit 9 about color utility and things that you need to consider when making color choices as a designer that go beyond just what color scheme you're working with. So let's first talk about using color, or the ways that designers and artists and photographers will use color. First of all, there's the idea of inherent or natural color. It is what we see in our visual field. It's the color in nature. It's the basic color of things that we see. So natural color looks like what it is. It's directly representational of the natural world, or even the built world. So everything in an image, in a design, is true to the way things actually are in reality. This is a portrait in which color has been applied, obviously, but it's been applied according to representational or inherent color. So the flesh tones are Caucasian. We've got a white shirt and collar. We've got a dark blue jacket. We've got graying hair. We have silver-rimmed eyeglasses. This would be considered inherent or representational color. Another capture, this time of product photography, representing the product as it is, as it appears on the store shelves, and as it would appear poured out into the glass. Heightened color is exaggerated, it's enhanced. It's based on inherent color, but it is simplified or exaggerated through intensification. It can go the other direction and be de-intensified as well. So in this poster, the flat color areas on the characters are heightened. We've got the Schnauzer with the grays, and we have the Spaniel with the browns. We have cool shadows. We have warm, direct light areas. Notice that there's no light and shadow on the characters themselves, just on the table and also in the background. So this would be considered heightened color. Another use of heightened color, exaggerated, would be the simplified colorations of comic book characters and superheroes. We also see heightened color in where there is color cast or color tonalities that are added for effect, like in color grading. You still get the sense of flesh tones and various inherent colors in fabrics or on surfaces, but there is an overall cast of color that affects everything that we see. And we're going to see color cast more easily in a captured image or an image that's created with color continuity, where the overall color scheme is warm or cool, or it's reddish or bluish. We'll look at some of these a little later on, but we don't tend to notice color cast so much when we're actually looking at things, because our eyes and brains register wavelength frequency, and we can always differentiate between one color and another despite lighting conditions. Whereas a camera is going to capture the overall tonality of something, and artists and designers can pick and choose color for various moods and effects. So again, heightened color is color that's exaggerated or mitigated in some way. And then arbitrary color is color that's applied for functionality, to set a mood, or for aesthetic reasons. So arbitrary color is the choice of the designer or the artist. So here we have a book cover using a yellow, green, and a black and white. So those three colors are applied for the purpose of the design and to communicate a particular idea or mood or express the content of the book. Reducing color to achromatic state, so all it is values, blacks, whites, and grays, is another way that we use arbitrary color. Black and white is basically lack of chroma, and that's an arbitrary color assignment. So every time you see a black and white photograph, you're looking at arbitrary color. Another example of arbitrary color in portraiture, dominating on the blue, and a little bit a pop of orange, and so this is a complementary color scheme, blue to orange, dominating on the blue, so the color dominance is on the cool side. There's a lot of saturation, there's a lot of value contrast in this. The face seems very much sculpted out of the surface behind him, but it's an amazing use of arbitrary color to communicate. So, when we are using color in our designs, and anytime we design something, we have to use color. It's, to see anything is to see in color, and to work with point, line, shape, all of these things, it's a color issue. One of the first things we have to consider when we're selecting colors for a design project is, are the colors appropriate to the purpose of the design? Remember, design is always with purpose. It's not whimsical, it's not serendipitous. You have to be really intentional in your color choices because you are communicating something. So you have to choose a color scheme that's going to be appropriate to what you're trying to do. Color can raise or lower perceived value. Perceived value is the worth that people give to something. High-end products are going to have different types of color schemes than lower-end products. You'll notice that higher-end products might tend to be more subdued in color. They'll use more neutrals, they'll use more grays and toned colors. Lower-end products will very often be more saturated in use of color. So color can set the value of a product in the eyes of the consumer. We also have to consider negative and positive associations of color. For example, it used to be in the US that pink was not a color that guys wore, but pink is now accepted pretty much without question across the board. Orange is not generally accepted as well in the springtime as it is in the fall. Every color will have negative and positive associations. Category brand colors have to be taken into consideration if you are designing certain types of packaging or for certain types of brands. There's also historic associations. If you are an art director on a film or a television show that takes place in the 60s, say like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, you're going to cast your color, you're going to use colors that are associated with that point in time to make things more authentic and more believable and suspend people's disbelief more easily. You're also going to be using color to attract attention. You have to create things that differentiate and stand out from others in the category. So you have to work within the appropriate color scheme, the relative value of what you're designing for, any negative or positive associations of the colors, the category brands, the history of the color trends, and create distinction on top of all of that. So you're going to use color to attract attention within a design and to stand out from other designs around what you're designing. In other words, say you're designing a cereal box. It's got to stand out on the shelf on its own despite all the other packaging designs that are surrounding it and trying to stand out on their own. You're going to use color to symbolize abstract concepts or ideas, and that means that color can be used to communicate certain things, like using the color red to denote danger, and using yellow or orange to denote caution. If we have a droplet shape, if that shape is blue, we think of fresh water. If that shape is green, we think of ocean water. If the shape is yellow or gold, we're going to think more of oils or fuels and things like that. If it's red, we're going to think of blood. So we can use color to very quickly and succinctly communicate an overall idea. We use color to unify, to create order and a coherence, meaning everything fits and works together within a design. So I've done that with the slide deck. I'm using a red-orange that I picked up from the color of the pen. That creates a sense of belonging between the words and the image that I've used, and it becomes coherent, logical, reasonable. We can use color to create movement. Pops of the same color within a design will cause the eye to travel across the surface. We can create a visual pathway through things by the use of color. We establish spatial relationships. Brighter colors will advance, warmer colors will advance. Dark colors advance from a light background, light colors advance from a dark background. So we can flatten space or create a sense of deep layered space just by virtue of color. Objects that are lighter in color will appear larger than darker objects. And the same is true with typography. If you have a white letter on a black background, it will appear larger than the same size black letter on a white background. The light color is reflecting more light. It will naturally appear larger. We use color to change the look and feel of something. We use color to create focal point, to emphasize or de-emphasize. So I've got a couple things going on here with color just on this slide. This becomes a point of emphasis, and this becomes a point of emphasis. Be very different if everything on this slide were black and white. So I'm emphasizing this, and we're going to see this because it's the only thing that's multicolored on the page. We use color to create mood and ambiance in a design, to create emotion. Certain colors are considered happy. Certain colors are considered outgoing or gregarious. Others are more reserved. Some are used to denote a sense of sadness or melancholy. And we also use color to create association with reality. Again, going back to that inherent or natural color, that becomes very important in gaming and visual storytelling. We have to use color in a way that it relates to the actual world we live in, or else things will not be believable, and we kind of lose the ability to step into that fantasy. As virtual reality becomes more widely used, those natural or inherent color associations of the real world are definitely going to have a major role in how people immerse themselves in that virtual experience. Already mentioned is the idea of ascribing value to things based on the color used. And the same thing is true in terms of the utility of something. Color very often relates to function of something. So if we see emergency vehicles, they are usually going to be red or a vivid yellow. And that way their function stands out, and we recognize that those are special vehicles made for a special purpose. Do we respect something because of its color or not? So this is an arbitrary use of color. It is a painting using organic forms. It is pretty much monochromatic, red. There's a few neutrals, and there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of true neutrals to it. It is all over dark. There is a lot of movement and brighter color. These are shades of red. Here's a tint of red. Here's another shade. There's some tints and shades of the neutralized chroma. But this is a representation of a type of jazz music. And so if we understand that, then we start seeing how the color communicates that concept of jazz or swing, and the movement and the punch and the bounce and the rhythms and the depth and the layering especially of jazz and swing all come into play visually within this piece of art. Picasso in his early periods painted in a lot of cool hues. And so this is his guitar player. There's a blue mood to this. There's some chromatic neutralized oranges and tones and shades and so forth. There's pops of lighter areas. Notice that the skin tone is actually pretty arbitrary. It's white and gray, and the background is mostly blue, and this dominates on blues. Here's another image, a nightclub scene. It has a sense of activity with how the value pattern is laid out. There's a certain rhythm to all the bottles that are on the shelves. And then there is a certain rhythm that's similar to where all the people are positioned. We get a strong sense of activity and noise. There's an overall color continuity of red, violet, and violet to this, which helps communicate the idea that this is a nightclub. The light's not very bright, and there's strong shadows going on, so there's a lot of movement throughout this piece by how color is distributed. This is an illustration. There's a narrative. We understand that we have an injured person here, and we have a bear coming around the corner, and these guys are being kind of startled by the bear. Our focus is here. We have basically blues and reds and red-orange in the color scheme, but the use of light and shadow, which are, of course, color considerations, bring the eye into focus where there is the greatest degree of value contrast and the brightest colors. And so the bear is actually not the subject. The subject of the painting is basically these two guys right here, followed by this guy, and then the bear, and then these guys are also involved, but they're supporting characters. Notice also that with the higher contrast in value and the brighter colors in here, spatially, these guys come forward. These guys are a little more subdued. They relate more to the bluish gray cliff, and so they set in the background. The bear is probably spatially behind this guy, but he's more contrasted against the background. And so he is the second read, and he's coming around, and he's going to provoke the next action that these guys take. But notice that there is a strong spatial understanding because of how color's been applied. Darker colors come forward out of lighter colors. Lighter colors come forward out of darker colors. Brighter colors advance. Cool colors recede. So color's used really well to create space, to set an environmental stage for the action to take place. And color's also used to direct the eye. For another point of design, notice that there's a diagonal relationship going on in here. That's an implied line. Notice that this tree completes at this pole. So there's some visual clues and repeated elements that are really important to set the stage. Here's a very mundane Target ad. You get these all the time as junk mail. This is a category brand use of color. Target's brand color is red and white. And so we have the figure against the red using green, which stands out as the complement of red. So we see this. This, of course, is a holiday ad. Above the diagonal, the red is brighter. Below it, it is more subdued and shaded. This is an arbitrary use of color. The model is not arbitrary. Red background is there for brand recognition. We talked about color being used to create value, to perceived value. So Breitling is a watchmaker. There's a certain elite positioning, and Breitling comes out of sort of the idea of adventure and the intrepid explorer. So there is a blue to orange color identity. They use black and yellow as their brand color. Generally speaking, they're going to be using the darker background and bring things forward that are lighter. And there's a strong, almost cinematic sense about the narrative in the photos. The use of color down here is all arbitrary. This is a realistic representation, so this is inherent color. The color here has been heightened because these are not actually his flesh tones. There's a lot more yellow in this. And here's a series of ads, so you can see the overall color identity, the color idea that's going on. It's definitely yellow and black, and there's some blues. And this is how Breitling stands out, say, from Rolex or Movement or Fossil. Certain categories of brands, such as fast food burgers and fries, are going to be using the same color schemes with variation. So we still have differentiation, but immediate recognition that, okay, this is where I can go get a burger. This is, I can drive through, I can take it out, I can eat it in, but if I want burger and fries at 2 in the morning, these are the colors I'm going to be looking for. Each one of these has its own brand and positioning within the fast food burgers and fries marketplace, but they're very different. And so McDonald's uses a warm yellow and a warmer red. In-N-Out uses a darker red and a more neutral yellow in terms of temperature. Burger King is warm compared to In-N-Out, but it's not as warm as McDonald's. The Carl's Jr. / Hardee's Star is warm like McDonald's. The yellow here is very warm. It's almost yellow-orange. This is very cool and pale comparatively. Jack got rid of the yellow a long time ago. Wendy's recently redid their logo and got rid of the yellow as well, so we're still using the red. These are all arbitrary colors. By the way, red is the first color we see at a distance. Red also increases appetite. Yellow we also see fairly quickly, not as quickly as red, but yellow is a color of speed. Yellow is also a color of things being affordable. So if you want fast food and you're on a budget, you're going to go to one of these entities. Colors used to create continuity but also differentiate across a line or a series of designs. So color is used to create continuity but also differentiation item to item. Notice also here that the color of the product itself, the drink, plays a big role in the color of the packaging. Here we can't really see the color of the product. The label is, first of all, wrapping all the way around, but the bottles are brown. We can't see the redness here, nor the orange over here. But again, within the same product line, the individual flavors are denoted with appropriate color schemes. These are arbitrary color choices created to communicate concepts. That brings us to color function, or color utility. It's debatable whether people in general realize how much color is used, how much color affects their lives and their decisions. As designers, we need to understand that because we have to obviously work with color. We have to work with it purposefully and deliberately, intelligently, and all of that. Color is used in nature for certain functions. It's also used in the made world for certain functions. So in nature, survival, protection, creating order to give visual clarity, and also function. And in the built world, we use it for the same thing: survival, protection, order, clarity, and function. So let's look at some of those. In interface design, the ability to use a machine or a product properly in the way that it's meant to be used very often relies on color. Color is involved in ergonomics. We have to be able to see things clearly in order to be able to read and to know what to do. In terms of legibility, we have to be able to read things on screen and in print and differentiate between one form and another form. Graphic designers are communication designers, so all of these things, the clear and logical user interface, the ability of the user to interact with the design properly, it's ergonomics, the legibility, getting things clearly seen and understood so that there's no confusion. These are all really important things that we have to be aware of and that become our responsibility as designers. This is a calculator, and it is a ergonomically designed calculator. It has a black ground, and then the various functions are sorted and categorized with color. So this is a functional application of color to a device. Legibility enhances readability. So if you create a landing page and you want people to sign up for your mailing list, you want to move people to take that action. So not only is size involved here in terms of the typography, it's also black against a lighter background, so it advances. It is very clear what we're supposed to do. And then this is secondary, this is tertiary, but you put in your email address here and then you have to click, because if you don't click, you don't get to join the list and you don't get the practical tips on how to communicate. So all of the color being used here is warm except for the blue. The blue pops out because it's the only thing that's, first of all, cool, and it's actually the brightest color on the page. So you cannot miss the blue click button. So that's how color functions on a digital landing page. If we come to a four-way stop and the stop sign is pink, it doesn't do much. We may not even notice it. We need the value difference between the red and the white. We need the force of the red. We need the ability to see this sign at a distance so that we have time to stop. Pink just doesn't do it. Pink is sort of a suggestion. Red is a you better stop or else. The health of something is often determined by color. So we look for visual clues and cues when selecting produce. We have certain color expectations of fruits and vegetables and other types of food that we eat. We want, in this case, our apricots to be kind of a healthy yellow-orange with a little more saturated blush. Fruit is still green. It's not yet ready to eat. If it starts turning brown, it might be too late to eat it. So we look for color clues all the time. Another way that color utility comes into play is to communicate what certain substances are, like in the case of litmus papers. Another function of color in nature is warning. In other words, this is a frog you don't want to touch. This is one of the poison dart frogs. And the bright color serves as a warning to other creatures and to people to either handle with care or stay away altogether. So in this case, color is used to stand out against the background. In other cases, for survival, you want to conceal yourself and be hidden amongst the foliage or the environment. So here we have a really ugly couch. There's a person there in camo, and you don't see the person immediately because he blends in. Colors are the same, it's a similar pattern. Color is attractional in nature. It's also attractional in advertising and design and other visual communications. You're going to notice things that are brighter and more vivid. You're going to notice warm colors before you notice cool colors. So color very much plays a functional role in both nature and the made world.